Fade-in. January 1942, Leningrad. A man sits at his desk. His fingers clutch a small packet. Peanuts. His body weighs perhaps 90 pounds. The chair beneath him creaks. Outside, the temperature has dropped to -30 degrees Celsius. Inside, there is no heat. His colleagues lie dead in adjoining rooms, some at their own desks, some collapsed in hallways. The siege has lasted for months. 700,000 people will die here before it ends. But this man Dmitry Ivanov will not eat what he holds in his hand. He is the keeper of the rice collection at the Vavilov Institute. Around him sit thousands of packets, seeds, grains, the genetic heritage of food itself, the largest seed bank in the world, 200,000 varieties of plants, many of them edible. Ivanov will die of starvation at this desk. The peanuts will remain untouched. This is not a story about one man's death. This is a story about what food meant when the world went to war, about the choices made when hunger became a weapon, about the invisible battles fought in kitchens, on farms, in warehouses, about the ration books that determined who lived and who died, about scientists who guarded seeds while their stomachs consumed themselves, about how food, ordinary, essential, overlooked, became the difference between victory and annihilation. Act 1. The Invisible Siege, September 8, 1941. The German artillery reaches Lake Ladoga. Leningrad is cut off. 3 million people. 2 months of food. Adolf Hitler has made his intentions clear. Leningrad must die of starvation, not capture, not occupation. Extermination through hunger. The Wehrmacht has been ordered to refuse all surrender negotiations. There will be no mercy, no food convoys. The Führer has decided to erase the city from existence using artillery, aerial bombardment, and time. At the Vavilov Institute, scientists understand what is coming. Their leader, Nikolai Vavilov, has spent his life traveling the world collecting seeds. Ethiopia, Afghanistan, South America, Central Asia. He has built the world's most comprehensive collection of plant genetics. His vision to end famine forever, to ensure that humanity never again faces mass starvation. The irony is crushing. Vavilov himself has already been disappeared by Stalin's regime, arrested, sent to the Gulag, accused of being a traitor for practicing bourgeois genetics. He will die of starvation in a Soviet prison in 1943, even as his work could have saved millions. But his scientists remain. They guard his life's work. When Soviet officials arrive to evacuate the seed bank, the answer is no. They will stay. They will protect these seeds even as the city starves. These are not just plants, they are the future of food. As autumn turns to winter, the rations drop, first to 250 grams of bread per day for workers, then 125 grams for everyone else. 3 thin slices. The bread itself changes composition. Sawdust mixed with flour, cellulose, cotton cake, anything to add bulk. People collapse in the streets. Bodies pile up faster than they can be buried. Deaths peak at 100,000 per month. At the Vavilov Institute, scientists sit surrounded by food they refuse to eat. Alexander Stukin, the peanut specialist, dies at his desk. Lilia Rodina, keeper of oats, wastes away guarding her collection. One by one, 9 scientists starve to death. Why? Because they understood something the rest of us forget. Food is not just sustenance, it is memory, it is future. These seeds represented every meal their children and grandchildren would never have to fear. They were holding time itself. The siege lasts 872 days. 1.5 million people die. The seeds survive. This is what food meant in World War II. Act 2. The Architecture of Hunger, May 2, 1941, Berlin. A conference room in the Reich Chancellery. Nazi officials gather around a table. They are not discussing tanks or aircraft. They are discussing calories. Herbert Back, the Reich Minister for Food and Agriculture, presents what will become known as the Hunger Plan. The mathematics are simple, brutal. Germany needs Ukraine's grain. The Wehrmacht will invade the Soviet Union, but the invading army must live off the land. The surplus grain will be redirected to Germany. The consequence: 20 to 30 million people will starve to death. This is not collateral damage. This is policy. Back has calculated it precisely. He has assigned daily rations by racial hierarchy. Germans receive 100%, Poles 70%, Greeks 30%, Jews 20%. The Jewish ration in occupied Poland provides 184 kilocalories per day, 7.5% of human daily needs. The Polish ration, 699 kilocalories, 26%. These are not rations. They are death sentences measured in grams. Hermann Göring signs off on the plan. Many tens of millions of people in this area will become redundant and will either die or have to emigrate to Siberia. Food has become a weapon of genocide. By 1942, 3 million Soviet prisoners of war have died, most by starvation. Millions more civilians follow. The Germans strip occupied territories of everything: grain, livestock, vegetables, even the agricultural machinery. What cannot be taken is destroyed. In one occupied Polish city, a witness records, "We ate boiled paper glue. We boiled leather strips from old shoes. All the pets were gone by winter." But there is a terrible contradiction in the Nazi food system. Back in Germany, Civilian rations remain relatively adequate through 1944. The regime remembers World War I, when the British naval blockade caused mass hunger and the home front collapsed. This time will be different. This time, Germany will feed its citizens by starving everyone else. The stolen food pours into Germany, from France, from the Netherlands, from Ukraine, and Poland, and Greece. In Greece, 500,000 people starve while their food is shipped to Berlin. In occupied territories, children develop rickets, scurvy, tuberculosis. Their bodies consume themselves. The system works until it doesn't. By late 1944, the Eastern Front is collapsing. The supply lines break. The American and British bombing campaigns intensify. German cities become rubble. Food shipments stop arriving. The winter of 1946-47 will be called the Hunger Winter in Germany. Hundreds of thousands will die. The average German civilian receives 1,200 calories per day, barely half of what a human needs to survive. The victors, unsure whether to feed the defeated enemy, implement rations barely above starvation level. Herbert Back will take his own life in a British prison in 1947, but the hunger he engineered will echo for decades. Act 3. The Home Front Revolution, April 1942. A suburban backyard in Illinois. A woman turns soil with a spade. Her husband is in the Pacific. Her brother is in North Africa. Her sister works in a munitions factory. She is planting a victory garden. Tomatoes, carrots, beans, lettuce, nothing extraordinary. But in the context of war, these seeds are weapons. Every vegetable she grows is one less that needs to be transported, rationed, or diverted from soldiers overseas. The United States Department of Agriculture has launched a massive propaganda campaign. Posters plaster walls across the nation. Plant a victory garden, our food is fighting. Mickey Mouse promotes the green thumb contest. Superman tends tomatoes. Eleanor Roosevelt plants vegetables on the White House lawn despite protests from the Department of Agriculture. The message is clear. Growing food is patriotic duty, and Americans respond. In 1942, roughly 15 million families plant victory gardens. By 1944, that number reaches 20 million. These gardens produce 8 million tons of food annually. 40% of all fresh fruits and vegetables consumed in the United States come from home gardens. This is not just about food, it is about control, about agency in a world spiraling toward chaos, about feeling useful when loved ones are dying overseas. Mary, a housewife in Ohio, writes in her diary, "I can't stop the war. I can't bring Tom home, but I can grow these beans. I can feed my children. I can contribute something." The Victory Garden movement transforms America. Vacant lots become farms. Rooftops sprout vegetables. Baseball stadiums in Florida host rows of crops. Even Japanese Americans imprisoned in internment camps plant gardens not for patriotic reasons, but for survival, to supplement government rations with fresh food. The USDA produces dozens of short films teaching gardening techniques, how to plant, how to weed, how to preserve. Community canning centers open across the country, providing equipment and training. Women who have never canned food in their lives learn to preserve squash, tomatoes, green beans. Sugar strictly rationed can be requested in small quantities specifically for canning. By 1943, the government estimates that victory gardens have saved enough commercial produce to supply the equivalent needs of the entire military. But rationing still bites hard. On January 8, 1940, Britain introduces ration books. Every citizen receives one. Coupons must be surrendered alongside money for restricted items. Bacon 4 ounces per week, butter 4 ounces, sugar 12 ounces. Meat is rationed by price 1 shilling 10 pence worth per week, roughly 1 pound. Tea that most British of staples is limited to 2 ounces per week. The ration books become the most valuable items people own. Losing one is catastrophic. Black markets flourish. People forge cards, steal from the dead, bribe shopkeepers. By March 1941, over 2,300 people have been prosecuted for ration fraud. In America, the system is more complex. War ration books contain colored stamps: red for meat and cheese, blue for processed foods. Each person receives 64 red points per month, but point values fluctuate based on supply. A pound of bacon might cost 7 points one week, 10 the next. Shoppers must calculate carefully. The system creates strange economics. Kraft macaroni and cheese becomes a national sensation because it requires few ration points. Restaurants introduce meatless Tuesdays. Recipes circulate for walnut cheese patties, creamed eggs over pancakes, casseroles that stretch tiny portions of meat with potatoes and vegetables. One woman in Birmingham recalls, "My mother could cook potatoes in at least a dozen different ways. Mashed, roasted, fried, boiled in soup, as patties. We ate potatoes morning, noon, and night. Sometimes I dreamed of bananas. I hadn't seen a banana since 1940. Fruit is particularly scarce. Oranges and lemons vanish completely. Onions become so rare they are used as raffle prizes." The British government launches propaganda campaigns promoting available foods. Potato Pete and Dr. Carrot become mascots. Carrots are promoted as improving night vision, useful for blackouts. The rumor spreads that British pilots have such good accuracy at night because they eat carrots. It's propaganda masking the development of radar technology, but it works. Carrot consumption soars. Children grow up not knowing what certain foods taste like. A 7-year-old girl in London sees a banana for the first time in 1946. She doesn't know whether to peel it. She bites through the skin. The rationing system, for all its frustrations, achieves something remarkable. It ensures basic equality. The rich cannot buy their way out. The poor are not left to starve. Everyone suffers together. This shared sacrifice becomes a point of pride. But beneath the surface, divisions persist. Rural families with land keep chickens and pigs. Urban families have no such options. One grandmother in Bethnal Green recalls, "We couldn't afford half our rations. People think rationing meant everyone got enough. It didn't. It just meant everyone got the same allowance. If you couldn't pay, you went hungry." The war rewrites the relationship between people and food. What was once mundane becomes precious. What was abundant becomes memory. Act 4. The Soldier's Meal, June 6, 1944. Normandy beaches, Achoa +6. A paratrooper crouches in a hedgerow. He's been on the ground for 3 hours. His squad is scattered. He doesn't know where he is. The hedgerows create a maze. Enemy fire snaps overhead. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small cardboard box, ration breakfast unit. Inside, a can of ham and eggs. For crackers, a fruit bar. Instant coffee, sugar tablets, chewing gum, toilet paper. For cigarettes, matches. This 32-ounce package weighs less than 3 pounds. It contains roughly 3,000 calories. It is designed to keep a soldier fighting for 24 hours without resupply. It is also, by most accounts, barely edible. The ration was developed in 1941 by Dr. Untold, a physiologist from the University of Minnesota. The Army needed a lightweight, non-perishable ration for airborne troops who couldn't carry heavy equipment. Keyes went to a local supermarket, bought hard biscuits, dry sausage, hard candy, and chocolate. He tested the combination on 6 soldiers. Their verdict: palatable and better than nothing. Not exactly a ringing endorsement. The ration was supposed to be temporary use for a maximum of 15 meals before being supplemented with hot food. But on the front lines, temporary became permanent. Soldiers ate rations for weeks, sometimes months. The monotony was crushing. Every breakfast the same, every dinner identical. 3 variations of canned meat rotating endlessly. The crackers were so hard they could break teeth. The cheese spread had the consistency of putty. The coffee was instant, barely coffee at all. One soldier in the Pacific writes home, "I would trade my entire month's rations for one of Mom's roast chickens. I dream about it. I can smell it. Then I wake up and open another can of meat product and try not to think about what animal it came from." But the ration achieved its purpose. It kept soldiers alive. It was portable, it didn't spoil. And in extreme conditions, jungles, deserts, mountain combat, it provided enough calories to function. This ration was bulkier but more substantial. Introduced in the late 1930s, it consisted of 6 cans comprising 1 full ration: meat and beans, meat hash, meat stew. The cans were heavier. Full day's rations weighed several pounds, but the contents could be heated over small fires. The ration was something else entirely. An emergency chocolate bar designed by Hershey to withstand temperatures up to 120 degrees without melting. It was made with bitter chocolate, sugar, oat flour, and artificial flavoring. Soldiers hated it. One corporal describes it as edible only in desperation, like chewing a candle that hates you. The military rations represented a revolution in food science. For the first time in history, armies could be fed without extensive supply lines. No cooks, no field kitchens, no daily resupply. A soldier could carry days or even weeks of food on his back. But the psychological cost was real. Food is more than fuel. It is comfort, memory, home. The ration provided calories but stripped away everything else. No flavor, no variety, no pleasure, just relentless sameness. Years later, veterans would recall the monotony more than the danger. "I can still smell those damned rations," one says in 1985, 40 years later, "and I still can't look at canned ham." Dr. Untold himself became increasingly concerned about nutrition. After the war, he conducted the Minnesota starvation experiment, studying the effects of prolonged calorie restriction and how to rehabilitate starving populations. He later became an advocate for the Mediterranean diet, believing proper nutrition could prevent heart disease. Keyes lived to age 100. Vindicated in his theories. But his rations remained controversial. Soldiers who ate them for months developed vitamin deficiencies, lost significant weight, suffered from malnutrition-related illnesses. The rations weren't designed for long-term use, but war doesn't respect design parameters. By the war's end, the U.S. military had produced hundreds of millions of rations. They fed soldiers from Normandy to the Philippines. They kept men alive in circumstances where fresh food was impossible. They were hated and essential in equal measure. Act 5. The Aftermath. January 27, 1944. Leningrad. Day 872. The siege breaks. The Red Army pushes back German forces. The encirclement collapses. Food convoys begin arriving. The starving city gasps back to life. At the Vavilov Institute, the surviving scientists emerge. They have lost 9 colleagues. They are skeletal, some can barely walk, but the seed collection remains intact. 200,000 varieties preserved. They learn that Nikolai Vavilov died in a gulag prison of starvation in 1943. The man who dedicated his life to ending famine perished from lack of food. The irony breaks them, but his vision survives. Today, the Vavilov Institute still operates in St. Petersburg. It still houses one of the world's most important seed collections. During the siege, those scientists made an impossible choice. They could have eaten the seeds and lived a few more weeks. Instead, they died protecting the future of food. Their sacrifice ensured that future generations would have access to genetic diversity, to plant varieties adapted to different climates, to crops resistant to disease and drought. They understood what we often forget. Food security requires thinking beyond the next meal. May 8, 1945. Victory in Europe Day. The war in Europe ends, but the hunger doesn't. Germany faces catastrophic food shortages. The infrastructure is destroyed. The farms are ravaged. The supply chains have collapsed. Allied occupation forces implement strict rationing, 1,200 calories per day for German civilians, barely enough to survive. Hundreds of thousands die in the hunger winter of 1946-47. The victors face a moral dilemma: feed the defeated enemy, or let them starve. The question divides military leaders. Some argue that after what Germany did after the hunger plan, after the genocide, after the deliberate starvation of millions, they deserve to suffer. Others argue that morality cannot be selective, that feeding the hungry is a human obligation regardless of nationality. Eventually, food aid increases. The calorie rations rise. The immediate crisis passes. But across Europe, the scars remain. Britain maintains rationing until 1954, 9 years after the war ends. Meat is the last item to be derationed, and an entire generation grows up knowing only restriction. In Japan, food consumption plummets from 2,000 calories per capita to 1,680 by war's end. Near starvation conditions prevail. American occupation forces begin food aid programs, but recovery is slow. In the Soviet Union, wartime hunger leaves deep trauma. An estimated 4.2 million Soviet citizens starved under German occupation. The collective memory of famine shapes Soviet food policy for decades. Victory gardens fade as commercial agriculture rebounds. Freezing technology improves. Supermarkets emerge. The food supply stabilizes, but those who lived through the war never forget. A woman in her 80s, interviewed in 2010, still keeps a garden. "I know there's a grocery store 3 blocks away," she says. "I know I can buy anything I want, but I still grow tomatoes. I still can vegetables." My daughter says I'm being silly, but she didn't live through the war. She doesn't understand what it means when food disappears. Epilogue: the weight of bread present day. We throw away 40% of the food we produce. We waste more food than entire nations consumed during World War II. The people who starved in Leningrad would be horrified. The scientists who died protecting seeds would weep. The mothers who stretched rations and grew victory gardens and made meals from scraps would not understand. But understanding history is not about guilt. It is about perspective. Food in World War II was not just sustenance. It was strategy, it was weapon, it was memory and future. It determined who lived and who died. It shaped battles, toppled governments, won and lost wars. The hunger plan killed millions through calculated starvation. The siege of Leningrad starved a city while scientists guarded seeds. Victory gardens mobilized entire nations. Ration books created equality and scarcity. Military rations kept soldiers fighting. The aftermath left hunger that lasted for years. These were not footnotes to the war. They were the war itself, fought with calories instead of bullets. Today, we face different food challenges. Climate change threatens agriculture. Supply chains remain fragile. Hunger still kills not through deliberate policy, but through inequality and distribution failures. The lessons of World War II remain urgent. Food security is national security. Hunger can be weaponized. Ordinary people, through small actions, planting gardens, sharing rations, protecting seeds, can change outcomes. And perhaps most importantly, when food becomes scarce, humanity is tested. Sometimes we fail that test catastrophically, creating deliberate famines to serve genocidal visions. Sometimes we rise to it, sharing equally, sacrificing together, preserving the future even at the cost of the present. Dmitry Ivanov died clutching peanuts he refused to eat. His death meant those seeds survived. His sacrifice meant future crops would grow. This is what food meant in World War II. It meant everything.